We're at Stratcom Summit 2026, and on the sidelines of the event, we sat down and talked with Syria's information minister, Hamza Al Mustafa, and our conversation was about the new country of Syria, the message the country conveys, and the information aspect of the contemporary wars. I'm Ilya Savcı, and this is One on One. Syria's Minister of Information, Hamza Al Mustafa, welcome to Turkey, Istanbul, and also to TRT World.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. I'd like to start with today. You were just at a panel a few minutes ago, and the title is A New Framework for the Global Order, a Strategic Communications Perspective. How does Syria frame this new global order? What was the message you gave in that panel?
Yeah, first of all, this is not my first participation in the Stratcom. I used, when I was living here in Turkey last 5 years, to attend Stratcom. Is very prestigious and important events that gathers policymakers and academics, journalists all over the world to discuss about the latest concepts and themes, especially within the perspective of strategic communication. This is very important perspective because not only because in the media sector when we are talking of transforming from information and media to a strategic communication, but also on the external or international level. Now, in my panel, I mentioned that according to the latest statistic, that's more than 50 ongoing war all over the world. That means if, for example, if two conflicting parties involved in this war, we are talking about more 100 countries is actually involving in direct war and armed conflict. So in time of war, we cannot talk about communication. We talk about information, about media, about the media war, about informational gaps. So here we give the space for misinformation and disinformation. So that's why, according to the World Economic Forum, misinformation and disinformation now is #1 short-term risk, not internally but externally. So combating and countering misinformation and disinformation, promoting the language of peace and dialogue, especially in the in time of conflict and escalation. Here, you know that we are living at the end of the day, we are living in the Middle East. This is area is full of armed conflict, of fragmentation in all different countries, and the recent escalation between Iran, the United States, and Israel also opened the door for informational war about the narrative itself, who is the rightful narrative, and we are in situation which narrative all over the world competing and conflicting. So as a countries, Syria and Turkey and the others Arab countries, that we have to keep our narrative exist and alive in this competition and in this conflicting situation. So we talked here about the importance of preserving strategic communication, about collective effort to fight and to combat misinformation and information. For example, in Syria, we are targeted of daily campaign of misinformation and information, more than 1 million fake account targeting the country, trying to deepen the division. You know that Syria now is navigating a new critical transitional period after 5 decades of authoritarianism and dictatorship, and after 14 years of extremely armed conflict. So where the political and social division can preserve without if just we didn't have a multi-layer strategy to combat it.
Exactly, as you said, there's not only a war that's being fought outside of Syria, but Syria itself is still very fragile.
Yeah.
How do you try to navigate around the conflict that's going around the region, and also how are you trying to unify that Syria message inside the country while battling the misinformation and disinformation attacks coming from perhaps other countries?
Yeah, internally combating misinformation and disinformation is started by restructuring the media sector to transform the media sector from state-run media. The Syrian regime, the Assad regime, used the media sector as a propaganda tool for misinformation and disinformation and to deepen division. He invested in divisions and sectarianism as a survival tool. So our messages and our aims after the establishment of the new government is how to preserve the Syrian unity, and also we started restructuring the media to be a public service, to rebuilding trust with the audience, going to two-way communication rather than conventional concept of media and information. Also, we started also, we invested in building bottom-up code of conduct and ethics, gathered all the Syrian journalists in order to find an ethical framework that's organized the media sector and journalistic work in Syria. And also we have opened the door for independent and private media to be active. Of course, we see the public media as a crucial, as an important actor, but it will not be dominant, it will not be alone. It will be an area for the independent and private media to be exist and contributing, because when we are talking about institutional media at the end of the day, even if they have a different overview or different perspective, but they are institution and they have the professionalism and objectivism who can they can fight the misinformation and disinformation. So externally, that's our message in Syria. That is very clear and very simple. As a Syrian, we suffered from the conflict and we suffered from the war. You know, there are a lot of repercussions and consequences of the war economically, socially, and even demographically as well. So our message is first of all, we are standing with the Arab state in against all the hostile action that targeting their sovereignties, and also we are trying to pass the message that this area need to reduce the escalation as much as we can, and also to give a chance and opportunity for another methods such as diplomacy, dialogue, public diplomacy, in order to reach a rational and win-win situation for all countries in this region.
Absolutely. And you mentioned narrative and message quite some time. And a country usually itself carries a message. And when we're looking at the new Syria, it fought its way out of autocracy and now it's moving into democracy. You even have a female minister, Minister of Social Affairs, Hind Kabawat. So given all these contexts, what's that one message in your official eyes that you would like to convey from Syria to outside the world?
So, yes, Syria now is, as I said, Syria is navigating a very critical transition period. We are transforming from 6 decades of authoritarianism and dictatorship, from 14 of armed conflicts, and a lot of political and social division, into a new political system. We are trying to restructuring our institution because we don't have an institutional state in Syria. Syria was for only one family. So of course, now in this transitional period can do some mistakes, of course, but at the end of the day, we are eager as the Syrian government to establish a state, a modern state, civil state for all Syrians, regardless their ethnic background or religious background, and also this country is open to the world, not a closed country, not like-minded country, trying to interact positively with the regional, not have always a conflict and dispute, and trying to be a positive actor in preserving the stability in the region. The Assad regime used to create a troublemaker for Turkey, for Jordan, for Lebanon, for all the region and for all the world in order just to preserve the authority and to stay in power. Syria trying to cut completely with its near history and trying to establish a normal state, because Syria was not a normal. This is our message, to be a normal state, interactive positively with the neighboring country and the world.
Mm-hmm. At the end of last month, we saw attacks happening in Iran by Israel and the United States, and the conflict there wasn't contained in Iran, but it erupted into a regional conflict. How does Syria see this conflict?
You see, we suffered from both. We suffered from Iranian intervention, and we are suffering from Israeli that's occupying our territory and trying to advance every day. So, and of course, as I said, Syria now stand with neighboring countries, with the Arab friends, who are now subjected to not only disinformational campaign, but the Iran, for example, 80% of the strikes targeted the Arab countries. So of course, we, as the Syrian government, as many statements have been issued by the president and by also the foreign ministry, that Syria always prefer a diplomatic solution and try to reduce escalation, because in this war, this is what it can lead the region itself to very negative scenario that nobody needed.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking some time to talk to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.